Hello, my name is Jimmy Vegas and welcome to this, the 8th in a series of video tutorials for Unity 5. Okay, so in this episode what we're going to be doing is quickly brushing up on a few things that we've done around this little area. This episode will mainly be about writing code as well as we'll start looking at animation. So firstly, what we'll do is we will have a look at this fence here, and if we press play, you'll notice that when we head towards it, we currently walk through it. So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly enable all these bits of wood so as we can't walk through them. And what you do is in your hierarchy just here, find where we put all of the fences and select every single one. So you can hold the shift button and select the first one and then the last one, and they will all select. Once you've done that, head over here and click Add Component, and you need to go to Physics and then Box Collider. And all this does is, as you can see, it adds sort of green lines around each object. That is what your collider is. So you can't pass through this. So if we press play again and head over there, you'll see that we can no longer pass through it, which is exactly what we want. Okay, next what we'll do is we will write a quick script to collect our coin. So here, down in your asset window, in the scripts folder, right click, create, and then click on JavaScript. And I'm just going to call this one coin collect. This script will just be a nice simple script. So if you double click and give it just a couple of seconds to open up in MonoDevelop, and as you remember from previous episodes, MonoDevelop is that program we can write our scripts in. So let's give it another few seconds to load here. Okay, so we're coming into the screen now. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a few little lines of code which enable us to pick up the coin as it's spinning. Okay, so again, as always, delete the code it gives you. And we basically need something really simple. So we're going to put function on trigger enter, and then info, and we need collider. And as always, remember, it is cap sensitive, so make sure the caps O, T, E and C are correct, and then we need to open curly bracket and a really simple line of code, destroy, and then game object. So what we've written here, let's do a curly bracket on the last line. Remember the semicolon on that destroy game object line. So all we've done there is we've made it so as when a trigger enters whatever object this script is attached to, we'll destroy it. So it will remove it from the game world. So let's save that script. Head back into Unity. Now let's find this coin, which is coin 001. And I'm just going to drag that script on here. Let's try that again. There we go. So you can either drag it onto the coin in the hierarchy, or you can drag it onto the actual coin itself here. Now if we press play, it won't actually pick up. We can walk into it, but the coin doesn't get picked up. The reason for that is we haven't set a trigger, because if you remember correctly, we said on trigger enter. So we need to head to our first person controller, which is this one just here. We need to scroll down to capsule collider, and then hopefully when we press is trigger right there and press play, we will be able to pick up our coin. So let's walk to our coin. It's not worked. Best thing to do there is let's increase the size of our trigger. So here on radius, let's enter 1. And in height, let's enter 2. And now let's press play again. And let's collect our coin. As you can see, we've now picked it up as our collider, which is the trigger, has collected it. Okay, so we will work further with these coins in future episodes, but for now we're going to delve into the realms of animation. Now, animation is something which is quite vital in Unity, and in some ways it can be used as a replacement for scripts. For example, if you have an NPC, you can actually set where they go via animation rather than a script. But for now, we're going to start something fairly simple, but as I say, we will be using animation later on. So what I'm going to do is over here, I'm going to use this area just here for our animation. So what I intend to do is build a kind of like a portal where we can walk into it and be teleported somewhere else. So to do that, what we do is make sure we're clicked here in textures, and let's go to game object, 3D object, and let's create a cylinder. So we want this as like a teleport pad that we can stand on. So we need to change the scale. So let's change this to 0.1. Maybe a bit too big. Let's try 0.05. And let's bring this down to Earth and put it in a position that we're happy with. So about there. And let's increase the scale on the X and Z or Z. 2 and 2. So that looks big enough. Okay, we'll go with that. So next thing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import some textures. So I'm going to call this warp base 001, drag and drop into Unity. And as I say in every episode, all these assets that we use can be found for free on our website. Head over to it, you can find a link in the description, and then head to the downloads and assets section, and you'll be able to navigate your way through and find the assets. So I'm just going to drag and drop this now onto our object, so it looks a bit kind of warpy, and I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to bring it up to about there maybe, and I'm going to increase the size on the Y scale, and I'm going to put this as 0.2, so it's a bit thicker at the top. In fact, we'll have 3. Okay, we'll leave it like that for now. Let's add a few more little things. So let's add a game. I'll tell you what, before we do that, it's probably best if we right click here and create empty, and let's rename this as warp 001. And let's right click and let's rename, call this warp base, and drag it onto warp 001. Let's rename this and call this warp roof, and let's drag that onto warp 001 as well. So next, let's go to game object, 3D object, and cube. Let's decrease the size of this to 0.25, 0.25, 0.25 on the X, Y, and Z. Right click, rename, let's call this base 001, and let's drag and drop that onto warp 001. So as you probably noticed, I am doing this as quickly as possible at the moment. Let's put this into a nice position over here. Quicker I do this, quicker I can actually prove the point of why we're doing this. Okay, so let's put that there. Let's increase the size a little. 0.3, let's try 0.35. Oops, not 35, 0.35. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to drag and drop this warp block texture in now. And then drag it onto our cube. And then let's quickly duplicate, hold Control, press D. And let's make it so we've got kind of 4 corners. Oops. Okay, so that'll do there for now. Next thing we'll do is go to component, and we want to add another cylinder. This is the one we'll be using, sorry, game object, my apologies. This is the one we'll be using for the animation. So again, 3D object and cylinder, right click, rename, and just call this warp effect. That'll do for a nice name. Drag and drop into warp 001, and let's get it in place. So we want it kind of center of our warp. So we need to extend it a little. So let's see. Let's have the scale on the X as 1.75 and on the Z as 1.75. And let's slowly bring it into position. That looks okay there. And let's bring it down. Okay, so it just needs to go a little bit more center, so about there. Okay, that looks fine. Oops. I've gone onto the water there. My bad. Okay, so what do we need to do to this now? We need to extend it on the Y a little. So let's put this as, what would be a nice number? Let's put 1.5. Okay, let's extend it some more. Let's have 2.5. So it should be intersecting down below your ground. I'm going to set the Y as -4 maybe. In fact, let's set it as -3.5. And I want to increase this top just here to give it a bit more space. You'll see why in just a second. So I'm going to set this to 0.6. So it's quite tall. There. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop this warp glow into our textures folder and then drag it straight onto here. Now we need an effect on this to make it look a bit better, as it were. So we'll use the same kind of affair we did for the fire. So if you head onto your shader here, currently says standard, head to particles and additive. In fact, should we try additive soft? Let's try that one. There we go. We'll go with additive soft on this one. Okay, so now we need to animate. So down here you'll notice you have project and console. If you go over here to this little menu button here and go to add tab and then go to animation, you'll notice this animation pops up just here. So make sure you have your warp effect selected, and each one of these lines here represents a kind of a frame, and you can set what happens at that frame, and it kind of blends together nicely. So to start an animation, what you would do is you click this here, the record button, and you'll be prompted to put this a name. So I'm going to call this warp anim, and then click save. You notice this red line now appears. This is where the animation begins. So we want to put, let's just retype this number here, whatever you have in the Y. Try and get this to one decimal place. So you've either got, for example, 3.0 or 3.5, 4.0 or 4.5. It is much easier that way. So I'm just going to retype as -3.5. You'll notice these two dot things now appear. So that's now set as a frame. So at this frame, that is exactly where your animation will be. So if you click this just here, and that is now the 5th frame. So if we click here, that's the 10th frame. So you can see that it's currently set to 60. So you can change this to how many frames a second, but I'm going to leave it as 60 in this box just here. So at the 10th frame, I want my animation to be at -3. And then on the 20th frame, I would like it to be at -2.5. On the 30th, let's have it as -2. And on 40th, -1.5. So as you can see, I'm just going along and typing in where I want it to be, and I'm decreasing it in increments of 0.5. So is that correct there? Let me just click on this one. So we have 1.5 there, and on this one we have -1. So this one should be, let's see, let's start going down again on this one. So let's put this back to -1.5 and -2. Click on that one. So we're on the 80th frame now, and -2.5, and then -3, -3.5. So -3.5 is where we began, but I'm just going to go a little bit further and have -4, and then -4.5, and then scroll along just a little bit more, and here I'm going to put it back as -4, and then this I'm going to put back as -3.5. Okay, so that kind of brings this animation kind of up and then down and then up slightly again, and then it would repeat. So let's click this button now, and that stops our recording of what we're doing. So hopefully when we press play now, we should be able to see our warp moving up and down. So it's up to you how far you want to go with your warp, but that is the effect of animation. So for example, further animation effects that we will be using in the very near future is when we have our sword, we will have it as, for example, when we're idle, our sword will just be bobbing up and down slightly. So that's the extent of what other animation we're going to be using. So for now, let's finish off this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select warp 001, and I'm going to duplicate it. Hold Control, press D. And I'm going to place it on top of this building just here. So let's bring it over here, across, and up. And we've gone too far. We've gone much too far. Okay, let's bring it back down to Earth. And let's place it in a position we're happy with. So about there. And inside that now, I'm actually going to delete that warp effect. So this is where we're going to end up warping to. So if we head back to warp 001, and on the warp effect, we now need to put this down here and untick Capsule Collider. What this does is this enables us to walk into our warp, like so. So we're actually stood inside it now. And what we want to do is we want to, let's see what's the best way of doing this. So we want to warp ourselves from here over to here as soon as we enter it. So what we'll do, let's see, let's add a new cylinder inside this warp. So game object, 3D object, and let's have cylinder, and let's put it in there. So you've coupled it with warp effect, and let's zero out the position to there. Let's bring it up a touch, and let's increase the scale. 1 and 1. Okay, that looks fine. And now what you need to do is untick Mesh Renderer. So you can see it kind of disappears, but it is still there. So down here now, click on Project and head back into here. You'll notice we have the animations just here for the warp effect. They're fine there for now. So what you need to do is still selected on this cylinder. Let's right click, rename, and let's call this warp pad for now. And also over here, select is trigger. So in our scripts folder now, we need to right click, create JavaScript, and let's call this warp. Double click to open in MonoDevelop as always. Just loading itself up, and delete the code you get. So let's start from scratch again. So we need to have our variable, so var, and let's call this warp target and transform, capital T on transform, and semicolon there. Now we need the function update. As I say, it's always good practice to have this in, as it may be useful in the future. So remember, open curly bracket and then close curly bracket. Now we need our function on trigger enter again. If you remember, we did that for collecting our coins. And we need here the collider. So in our brackets, and then open curly bracket. Remember, it is cap sensitive. Can't stress that enough. The amount of times that you'll figure you've written a code, can't figure out why it's not working, and it's just simply because of capitalization on your words. So if call dot game object dot tag equals, let's call this warp 001, close bracket and open bracket. Okay, so before we go any further, we just need to set a tag called warp 001 on our warp pad. So to do that, go here where it says tag untagged and click on add tag. You'll see this list is empty, so click on the plus, it'll say new tag, so let's call this warp 001. There we go. So now we have warp pad with a tag of warp 001, and just go to untagged again and click on warp 001. So now the tag says that. So head back into the script. You can see that's what we've done. We've made it now equal to that. So we want to transform our object and send it to position, and we want to send it to where we've defined our variable up here, which is warp target dot position. And remember the semicolon at the end. So now we need to finish that with a closed curly bracket and then finish the entire script with another closed curly bracket. So we've gone a bit wrong there. We just need to change that. We need this. So that line there should be this dot transform dot position is equal to warp target dot position. So we just need to send it to there. So save that script. And when that's done, you need to put this on your warp pad over here. So just drag and drop onto there. And then if you click on your warp pad, you'll notice down here we have the script in, and the warp target is currently set as none. We want to set ourselves here. So to do that, we go to our warp 002, which is up here, and we need to right click and create empty. In fact, no, we won't do it that way. Let's delete that. Let's go to game object and create empty. Let's do it that way. Right click, rename, and we'll just put warp target. And now we need to drag and drop this onto warp 002, and let's zero out our axis there. Ooh, we've gone a bit too far there. That's not quite where we wanted it. So let's put ourselves just there. So let's change our camera and let's just have a quick look. Okay, so that'll do just for now. Last thing we do is if we click on Warp 001 again, let's get ourselves onto the warp pad, and we need to put in here that game object that we just created. Here, warp target. So drag and drop over here. And now with any luck, when we press play, we should be able to walk into our warp pad and be teleported. And it's not quite working. That's nice. So let's try this again. Let's quickly review what we've done. So maybe if we go to our first person controller, scroll down, we may need to untick his trigger. And let's see if that works. Okay, so we have a bit of a problem here. It's not quite working. It could be that we need the tag on our player. So let's go to Warp 001 and let's try re-clicking trigger. Unity can be a little bit mischievous at times, as you probably guessed. Okay, so something has gone a bit wrong here. It's not quite working as I would have hoped. So let's have a look at our warp pad, and I'm going to expand it just to make sure that it is working as intended. So let's try that again. Okay, so it's not quite working. Okay, so just bear with me a second. Let's have a quick look why this isn't working. Okay, so as it turns out, I've made an absolute schoolboy error here. What we need to do is on the warp pad that we had, let me just recouple it back here. The script doesn't actually go on there. I made a vital mistake. So we need to remove the component from there, and the script actually goes on our first person controller, because it is essentially that we want to teleport, not the teleport itself. So I must apologize for that. That is entirely my fault. So once you've attached the script to your character, your controller, you need to put warp target over here and press play. Oops, I've just noticed something. So just to be clear, we need to untag our controller just there. So it should be untagged. Press play. There we go. And if we head over here, you'll notice we teleport instantly. Okay. So one more time. As soon as we get near our teleport, so let's try one more time, straight in, and we're over here, teleported. So we'll leave that tutorial there for now. Next one, we'll be looking at building a few more houses. We'll probably look into a bit more animation, and hopefully we'll have a bit more luck with scripts. So that's the end of this tutorial. Thank you very much for watching, and hope to see you next time.